Hi, and welcome to the weekly general reading for Monday, October 7th, 2019. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you real quick to all the wonderful, generous donations that have been coming in. We're halfway to our goal, and if you want to know any more about that, then just wait to the end and I'll go ahead and give you a little bit more information. Don't want to waste your time. Also, if you do want to donate, it is going to be everything you need to know about me is going to be in the description. And there are two ways to donate to our channel. That said, we are looking at the general themes and dynamics, what to expect, hopefully make some predictions for the next 7 days, okay? So it doesn't matter if it's actually October 7th, 2019, or, it's many, many years in the future, or a few days in the future, or whatever. This is a timeless reading. What the purpose of the reading is looking at the next week, okay? One thing that I do like to remind people of is that if you have landed on this page, it's probably for a reason. So there is probably some kind of guidance here for you, all right? That said, what you're supposed to do is pick the pile that calls to you the most, okay? And you can do that by color, by number. There are so many different ways that you can do it by just whichever one you feel might have the message that you think might be appropriate for you, okay? And it's just, you've got to use your intuition just like I've got to use my own. So just consider it as practice for that. Before I tell you which pile's which, I just want to say that we're using Energy Oracle cards by Sandra Ann Taylor. We're using the Spirit Messages Daily Guidance Oracle deck. That's the one on top with the butterflies on it. I believe that that's by John Holland. We're using a Universal Rider-Waite Tarot, and we're using the Gilded Reverie Lenormand, okay? That said, pile number 1 is the yellow butterfly, okay? Pile number 2 is the green butterfly. Pile number 3 is the pink butterfly. Pile number 4 is the purple butterfly. Pile number 5 is the white butterfly. And pile number 6 is the blue butterfly. And again, this is going to be for the next 7 days, all right, guys? So while you are picking that, again, I just want to say anything you need to know about me is in the description. And that said, go ahead and pause the video if you have not picked. Otherwise, we're going to start with pile number 1, the yellow butterfly. Alright, so as I'm moving these around so that I have enough space to do each reading, I do want to mention that I always put the timestamps in the description, and I try to make sure that I put a comment to them quickly after the video goes up, but sometimes I can't always do that, but you can always find the timestamps in the description. Alright, pile number 1, those of you who picked the yellow butterfly. We have hostilities, okay, we have the mice, followed by the message. We have judgment, the empress, and the lovers. Oh wow. Then we also have stand your ground. Okay, so in each reading, I like to pick one that's going to be like kind of the general energy for the week, and then I also like to pick one that's kind of a guidance card. So your guidance card is stand your ground. Unfortunately, the general energy is hostilities, but hey, we all have bad weeks, and it's not all bad either, because we also have the lovers, the empress, and judgment. These are all 3 major arcana cards, right? And by that I mean they're important cards, okay? If you don't have to know about tarot to know that just these are important cards, okay? So that means that you're going to have most likely a very important week this week, okay? The lovers does come up as well, the empress, so we're talking about a lot of love that has to do with nurturing, that has to do with giving. So unfortunately, I feel like this is going to be more on the side of the viewer. So if you have picked this pile, you're probably going to be called on to give a little bit more of yourself in a relationship. Most likely a romantic relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be romance. The lovers can just be about relating in general. But the empress followed by the Lovers, because the Empress also has to do with that kind of feminine energy and all of that kind of stuff. You know, she can sometimes represent pregnancy and things of that nature. You know, we've got this kind of rich, you know, emotionality there going on. So it's probably, you're probably going to be focusing a lot of your time this week around relating basically to each other. Now, the Judgment, this one has to do with a calling, okay? So you might feel called to do something this week. And I mean, I know that might seem like very, very vague, like what? But it's like a soul pull. It's like there's something about, maybe somebody will suggest an opportunity that you have. Maybe your boss will mention something. Maybe you'll come up with an idea. Maybe it will be within your love life. But there's going to be some kind of task that you have that you're going to feel pulled towards on a soul level. You're going to feel like, ooh, that's something I'm supposed to do, right? One thing, understand the difference. The need isn't necessarily the call. Just because something needs to get done doesn't mean that you're the one that has to do it, okay? Because we each have our own individual roles to play in our life, right? And that can be very difficult for us sometimes when we see that oh gosh, there's so much of a need out there. There's people who are starving to death, and there's people who need help, and there's people that, you know, there's all sorts of different humanitarian things that I can be doing. And the reason I'm mentioning humanitarian things is because we've got the Empress and the Lovers, which has to do with heart energy, okay? But just know that you're going to feel moved to help in some way, okay? And that you've got to be able to discern the difference between the need and the calling, okay? So let's talk about the hostilities here. And I think that this is kind of the answer rather than the question. The hostilities is more of the question of, okay, so what's going to be going on in your week? Well, you're probably going to find yourself dealing with difficult people, and the way you deal with them this week is you're being guided to show a lot of unconditional love towards them. Try to approach them as, okay, everybody goes through negative experiences, and that kind of stuff, and all of that kind of stuff. But one thing that I do want to mention is that when we are in this heart energy and we're trying to give to people, even if they're not being so pleasant, sometimes that hostility can turn in on ourselves because we're absorbing it somehow. And so be aware of your inner hostility too. If you feel hostile towards yourself, give yourself self-love, okay? And again, we've got, you know, with the Empress energy of giving and all of that, sometimes we give from a place because we have an overabundance of things to give, right? Somebody who's extremely wealthy, for example, it might not be a big deal to that person to give, you know, a sum of money that to maybe the average person is like, whoa, that's a lot, you know? It's kind of like the same thing, you know, sometimes we have a lot of love to give, you know, but sometimes we don't have as many resources, you know, and maybe we feel called to give, but we don't really have a whole lot to give of ourselves. The mice come up is showing that be aware that you have only a limited amount of resources, okay? You can't pull yourself too thin. It does kind of mention that, you know, you might feel a lack in your life. Just understand that right now, that is something that will, you know, it should pass after 7 days anyway, because we're just reading for the next 7 days. But we're also talking about a lack of communication. You know, and it's frustrating because we've got these cards, a lack of communication, hostilities, and then sandwiched between them is this like soul calling and the Empress and the Lovers, and it's just so positive. But these two cards, I mean, these two basically statements are letting me know that there is going to be some animosity there. There is going to be a feeling of lack, even though you're going to be kind of pulled to do these things, you know, and all of that. It could be also, and this feels very true for a very large amount of my viewers, that you will have a opposite gender. I want to make sure that I'm being appropriate to gender fluidity, okay? But you'll have an opposite gender person who will help you with this in some way, okay? And so, I mean, like, if you are in If you're in a lesbian or a gay relationship, this might not necessarily show up as your opposite, as the opposite sex. It might show up more like maybe you more feminine energy person and you have a more masculine energy person, and all of that good stuff. I just want to make sure that I'm clear about that. So stand your ground. These cards, I don't usually use these for readings, but I felt very, very pulled to use them for this particular weekly reading. Let me go ahead and read you the blurb, because I think that can be very instructional sometimes. Stand your ground is an empowering, confidence-building action to take from time to time. Now is a moment when you need to stand your ground. You know you can do it, and you know that by doing so, you will be the victor. So yeah, what this is saying is, regardless of how other people act the way that's true to yourself. It's really about authenticity rather than, because standing your ground can have a lot of stuff to do, because we've got to look at it in context of everything else. Standing your ground can just be about being firm with your boundaries, and we all need to do that, okay? And standing your ground can be like, well, I said no, and that means no. That's the boundary one. But it can also be like, I'm really going to defend this cause, or and things like that. Well, those things are very wonderful and things that we should be doing anyway. Standing your ground in this has more to do with respecting yourself as a human being and respecting humanity in general this week, to the point where you're not going to let negativity or somebody else's lack of communication basically dictate what you're going to do, okay? Make sure that you're focusing energy towards yourself, and that any kind of positive energy that you can give to other people, do that. But just remember, you're going to feel a little bit of a lack there, so don't give too much. So I hope that this reading has been clear. It looks like there's going to be some very ups and downs this week, but just kind of take it easy. Really focus on the self-love above everything else, and make sure that what I'm getting the most is just don't take any kind of hostilities personally. One thing that I've been confronted with a lot lately in my personal life is that people don't argue with, or get hostile with you if they don't care. Sometimes there's people that are just difficult, but people who care tend to be the ones that we argue with the most, or the people that we care about the most. It's kind of an interesting thing that happens in our lives, right? Okay, so hi, pile number 2. Those of you who picked the green butterfly, here is your reading. Okay, so we have the Angel of Love. In the Lenormand, we've got the stars, which is supported by the birds. We've got the Knight of Wands, the 8 of Pentacles, and the Fool. And then we've got Inspire Passion as your guidance card. This is great. It feels like this is going to be a pretty smooth week for you. And a lot of it has to do, yes, there's this passion with the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is a very sexy card. It's about, going forward with what you love and what your passion is, and of course with the rod, it can represent, it can represent that sexual attraction, yes, but it's usually more about that fiery energy that gets us in our creative energy and gets us moving forward, taking action, that kind of thing. The Angel of Love is just letting us know that not only are our love lives being taken care of, basically, like the universe, no matter what kind of dogma you believe in, whether you're a Christian or a Hindu or any kind, Jewish, whatever, there is a force in the universe that is intelligent, that is helping you with your love life right now. Okay, and you can call it whatever you like, your higher self, an angel, God, whatever, but it's just, there's something there that's helping you there. Another thing about the Angel of Love is that it also is instructing us to be more unconditional with our love, okay? And that can expand to any relationship. It doesn't have to be romantic love, okay? So yeah, we've got, right off the bat, we've got this fiery love energy, and we've got the passion and all of that. And then we've got this heavy concentration on work. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be an actual job. It can be, maybe something that we volunteered for or some kind of purpose that we've felt called to. But we're basically in the stage this week where we're working on something, and that focus is important. But what we're also being instructed, especially with the Fool coming afterwards, is just that we've got to, we can't take ourselves too seriously. Because if we do, then we're going to get kind of obsessive about whatever that work is, okay? And nobody, some people like to be workaholics and all of that. There's nothing really wrong with that. It's just in order to have a nice balanced, fulfilling life, it tends to be more healthy for us to be able to balance work with family, with I don't know, school, with whatever, and this could be school for those of you who are in school, and it's kind of like your job to learn right now. It could be that too, that you're working hard at school on a project or something like that. Now the Fool, it doesn't necessarily mean that you that I did mention the whole lightheartedness, but for those of you who are as familiar with the tarot, the Fool is about starting something new and being fearless in the as we face a new thing in our life. So there should be something new that comes into your life, or you should be feeling that new energy around you, like, ooh, something new is gonna happen. It's like you're gonna feel like it's about to happen. So that'll be towards the end of the week. So the new thing might not present itself until next week, but you'll get into that energy where you're going to be feeling like, okay, something new is going to happen. You're going to start looking for opportunities and that kind of thing. This is also a major arcana card, which lets us know that this is kind of a big deal in our lives right now. Is that, you're basically finishing up one phase and you're moving on to something new, okay? And this could also be just like leveling up, like a video game character. It could just be like you finished one cycle, maybe in your work life or in your love life, and now you're going to the next, right? So it could be, something along that effect as well. So when we talk about the star, we're talking about direction, and it's really interesting because we've got the angel of love that's giving us direction towards being unconditional in our love. We're talking about the Knight of Wands. It's giving us direction to, really go after what inspires us and let out that creative energy. We've got the direction towards focusing on whatever it is we're working on. And then we've got the Fool, which is like, the Fool isn't necessarily directionless, but the Fool looks to a new direction. They look for something new, right? So when we've got the star coming up in this particular context, we're not only talking about direction, but we're also talking about destiny. It's in our stars, basically, is the metaphor there. And then we've got the birds here that modify this. Now, for most of you guys, what this means is that you're going to be feeling a little bit anxious about some of the stuff that's going on this week. Maybe it's because it feels really big. Maybe it's because it is very demanding. This card shows the picture of a very demanding workload, right? And the Knight of Wands, he's rushing into action and everything, but he's in the desert. That can be very physically demanding. And so what we're doing, it's something that can cause us a lot of anxiety. Any kind of change, any kind of, especially as we anticipate something new happening, or if we're really concerned about how our work looks, can give us some anxiety. Another thing, that the birds represent, and this is going to be for less of you, but it's still going to apply, is it represents the everyday chatter around us, right? So you might be in a situation where maybe you'll be hearing a lot of maybe rumors about something. Maybe the rumors will be about you. Most likely not, because I don't see you being as engaged with that this week, okay? But you might be hearing some rumors, and the rumors might give you some idea of what it is that's new that you're going to be doing. Or it could just mean that, maybe you should spend some time in a group of people, which can be very, very difficult to hear if you're an introvert. Join maybe a club or something like that, just so you can just get around, have some light socializing, right? And again, I mean, that can be very scary to an introvert, but it is just showing that, your destiny, your direction is connected somehow to other people, okay? Or that you're feeling anxious about your destiny, okay? So it could be both. And I mean, it could be both as well, that you're anxious and there's a component of other people that have to do with this stage in your life right now too. But I feel like it's going to be more split for you. Like one's going to be a lot more obvious than the other, and you'll know which one that is. You'll feel it, and whichever one feels correct is the right one, okay? So, inspire passion. I mean, this is something that, this card talks about a lot. The Fool. I mean, like, this whole reading can be really wrapped up by this inspire passion card, okay? Let me go ahead and read the blurb because I think that can be very instructional. Life devoid of passion can be boring, uninspired, a blank canvas that slowly drains the soul. Now is the time to reignite your passions and rejoin life. This is an opportunity to set new goals. Yes, with the Fool, the new stuff. Which will in turn reconnect you with all that is sacred. Okay, so I understand that I have many male viewers, and this isn't anything against them, but when we get into our feminine energy, because I do know that I have a lot more female viewers than male, when we get into our female energy, sometimes we can feel a little drained because we don't have that masculine energy, which is that, like, let's go forth and do something, let's get let's get this done, let's, move forward and all of that. Passion can be the bridge between that, okay? It can be the bridge between our feminine energy and our masculine energy. And for those men that are watching, if you've been feeling a lack of passion, it's kind of the opposite. It's like the feminine principles which animate you and put you in touch with your passion. So it's kind of like a dual thing there. But basically, what we're talking about is trying to tap into that inner masculine energy, or that inner go-getter energy, okay? And one way we can do this, which, I mean, given that I'm looking at the Angel of Love right here, and I'm thinking might not be the best advice, but it's what I'm intuitively getting, so I'm going to say it anyway. Sometimes when we get really angry about something, it can inspire us to action. Just think about some of the most beautiful things that have happened in the world because somebody got angry, right? Like the Martin Luther King Jr. movement, right? People got angry enough to do something about a really big problem. That's the kind of energy that I'm talking about. Sometimes, the masculine energy of pushing forward and everything. I'm not saying that men are angry, but it's just, that testosterone that pushes forward and that kind of stuff. You can hone that. You can kind of channel it to give you that charge to be able to take, to move forward, basically, with your dreams and your desires, okay? So sometimes when we're feeling that lack, what we need to get into touch with is, well, what's really fueling us? What are we angry about that is making us want to do the things that we want to do? What are we saying, this isn't right in my life. I need to change this, And sometimes it's like that need, the more like, we've got to take care of ourselves, we've got to go out and get something for ourselves and that kind of stuff. Sometimes that gets us more in touch with that energy that we need to actually get that stuff done. So hopefully that makes sense. It looks like you guys are going to have a very positive week either way. So look forward to that, and I will hopefully see you next week. All right. So, pile number 3, those of you who picked the pink butterfly, here's your reading. Oh no, we've got anxiety. Oh no. Okay, so let's see what the rest is. We do have the whip and broom, and we have the scythe. Okay. We have the six of, the six of swords. We have the four of the four of pentacles. We have the ace of cups, and we have hope. Okay, so hope is your instructional card this week. Just so you know, the general energy this week is anxiety. Hope is your instructional card, and all of this is kind of the details, all right? Oh gosh, I don't like it when I get readings like this because I feel like I don't know. I want to tell you guys nothing but positive things, not because I want to be disingenuous, but because I want to help you really build yourself up, right? But sometimes we just have bad weeks, and it looks like this might be a time where you're going to have just one of those weeks, okay? So let's look at this so we can prepare. Okay, so there is going to be a lot of anxiety here. And what's going on here is that we're trying to get away from negative thinking, which is really interesting because usually I see anxiety we're over-identifying with thinking, okay? And we kind of think ourselves into these like traps. But in this way, it's like we're really just trying to get away from our thoughts. So one thing that you might do to try to lessen the anxiety is to educate yourself about whatever it is that you're anxious about, okay? So, I mean, let me tell you, this is kind of a personal anecdotal story for myself. One time, like when I found out my dad had cancer, my dad had passed away in 2015, okay? When I found out my dad had cancer, I got really anxious about it, the way that any child would, even if it's an adult child, about his condition, what was going to happen and all of that. But I was too anxious. I was too anxious and sad and concerned to face the information. So I wanted to kind of get away from the information, right? And it took me about a week before I was able to just go ahead and look up the kind of cancer he had and the different options that he had and all of that. And I do have to say, it was a situation where he had been very positive about it, and all of that kind of stuff. And his initial treatment was great. I mean, it went really, really well. But it was like I was still anxious because that word is so charged, right? So it was hard for me to bridge the gap and start educating myself about, okay, well, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? What are his options and all of that? But once I did, I started feeling so much better. So that's kind of what this is showing me, is that sometimes we're anxious about something and it's like it's so emotional that we don't even want to look at it because it's just that emotional, right? But sometimes we have to force ourselves to look at it, not to feel the feelings, but so that we can quiet our mind, right? Because our mind, it's our mind that is, causing the emotionality. And do understand these three things are all related. Thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are all going to interplay with one another and produce your experiences. So if you're ever feeling out of balance, you can either challenge your thoughts or you can challenge your beliefs. Usually the feelings are a little bit more difficult. Now, any psychologist who's been trained, at least the way that I was, is going to say that yes, you can choose your feelings, but it's more about that active process of challenging your thoughts and challenging your beliefs, so then your feelings will line up with what you're thinking about and what you're believing, okay? And I'm not talking about false hope. I'm just talking about, really being able to challenge yourself and be like, is this belief even serving me? Because, for example, if I believe that I'm not a good person, then I'm going to be feeling bad all the time. And that belief is both untrue and is not, serving me. So that's what I mean by that. Well, let's move on, because we do have this anxiety, and this is just showing me that the best way to soothe your mind right now is look for information, okay, about the situation, or review information from your past about the situation, because sometimes there are things that we can't look up, on Google or Wikipedia or in the library. We can't actually look it up, but yeah, it's about educating yourself. And then we've got the Four of Pentacles. This is just showing me that you're going to be feeling a lack. This doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a lack in money. Given the anxiety motif and given the Ace of Cups here, I feel like the lack is going to be actually in your energy, okay? It's going to be feeling very low energy this week, okay? The Ace of Cups is, usually it talks about like new positive beginnings in our emotionality, right? And I think that for some of you guys, I would say about 20%, there is going to be a new kind of relationship type thing that's going to happen. This could be a friend or even like a student-teacher relationship or something like that. But it's most likely for most of you, most of my viewers that pick this pile, it's going to be about getting in touch with your emotional side too, and really feeling your emotions this week as well. Okay. Excuse me. So, we've got the whip and broom and the scythe. Okay. The scythe, it looks sharp. It's like, ooh, I don't know. And then we've got the whip and broom, and that looks kind of scary. The whip and broom originally in the Lenormand is about things that are tedious, things that repeat, that happen repeatedly. Like when we get a broom and we're sweeping up, those of us who don't have like a Roomba, we're sweeping up and all of that. It's a repetitive movement. It's over and over. So it's talking about tedium. Okay. Yes, it can be. Yes, it can be something that's a little bit more. Sometimes this comes up when we're talking about relationships. Like if I'm doing a relationship reading and this comes up, we're talking about kind of kinky stuff. So I want to just give you the context of that too. But given that we're talking about anxiety, we're talking about trying to get away from our thoughts and feeling we don't have enough and that kind of stuff. And everything, it feels like this is just going to be like, it's just wearing on you. Okay. The energy is going to be wearing on you this week. Okay. And just understand that might feel a little painful. It's okay. The scythe, it's cutting, it also harvests things, right? It can also bring us a lot of abundance too. But with the scythe, the point facing this card, it's letting us know that it's the tedium, the repetitiveness that is going to bring us some pain. Okay. And again, I wish I could tell you like, oh no, it's going to be great, but it's just, this is something we go through. This is humanity. This is real world stuff. Okay. So that's just what's going to be going on this week, okay? But here's the silver lining. We do have the hope, and we do have the Ace of Cups, because even if the Ace of Cups is representing just letting things out and really like almost over-identifying with our emotions, for those of us who don't sit with our emotions very often, I know that I'm one of those people, that's why I mentioned that, it can be really purging. And this whole thing might just be having to do with purging old energy so the new energy can come in. So let's look at what the blurb says on hope, okay? So the blurb says, your loved ones in the spirit world know when to reach out if they see you're at a low point. Whether you're caught up in a difficult situation or struggling with someone specific in your life, there's always hope. Well, yeah, of course. Hope can be like a difficult word because it almost sounds like it's delusional. It can. And sometimes like, well, what's the purpose of hoping if, I've got to face reality. I've got to make sure that, but hope is just, it's about that principle, like the Wheel of Fortune principle, that we go through cycles in our lives, and sometimes we go through a negative cycle, and then right up there, then we have a positive cycle happen. Hope is about the recognition of the cycles in one's life. Okay, it's the recognition that we can't have darkness without lightness, and the darker the darkness is, the brighter the lightness is in our lives. Okay, so I really I don't want you to feel too discouraged this week with this energy. We can always rise above this energy. You can take charge. We've got some instructions here. First off, you're going to be feeling just kind of low energy. Take care of yourself. Okay, find some calming things to do. Maybe aromatherapy. Maybe taking a nice spa bath, whatever it is that helps you feel calm, getting extra sleep, that kind of thing. Seek out information that's going to help inform your decisions, going to help inform whatever it is that you're fearful about, and feel your feelings, That is what you can do to get this energy out as quickly as possible and move on to the more positive things in your life, okay? All right. So, hi, those of you who picked the purple butterfly, pile number 4, here is your reading for the week. We have a door to romance. Wow, that's a promising one. Okay, so this is the general energy of the week, is the door to romance. We have the cross followed by the fox. That's an interesting energy there. We've got the 5 of Wands, we've got the King of Pentacles, the Queen of Wands, and then for our guidance card, we have New Beginnings. Okay, so this is nice. I like this. So the general energy of the week, we've got, we're talking about our love lives, okay? Or it could just be that our heart is going to be really involved this week when it comes to how we're approaching our life, okay? How we relate to each, how we relate to the people in our lives. And we've got 2 people card coming up, you know, the Queen and the King, you know, and all of that. It's like, that's, you know, relating is going to be the predominant energy this week for you guys, okay? The 5 of I don't know why I keep blanking. It's Wands. The 5 of Wands, you know, sometimes it comes up because we're talking about maybe miscommunication and things like that. I feel intuitively that this reading isn't about that aspect of this card. I feel like this is more playful energy. It's more, you know, maybe witting, you know, witticism, like going back and forth, telling jokes and things like that. I feel like it's more playful. You know, and I'm even getting that it could be something like you're relating to people outdoors, doing something like with sports or something. You know, it feels weird for me to say that because I am like the least sporty person ever. But you know, some of my viewers in this group might happen to be very sporty or you know, be planning more active, you know, something active this week, and that's what we're talking about, is just being active with other people. So we've got the King of Pentacles and the Queen of Wands. What this lets me know is that you're going to be feeling protected. You know, the general energy this week is you're going to be feeling protected when it comes to your material, you know, like your physical well-being, and when it comes to materials, you're going to feel like, okay, I at least have enough control to know that this week's not going to be the worst. You know, it's going to be fine. You know, for some of you guys, this could represent an actual person in your life, somebody who might be a little bit more rich than you, or somebody who might be very physically imposing, you know, that kind of thing. Because the Pentacles are all about material, okay? The material. You know, it could just be somebody who's got the van that's going to take all of you guys out to go hiking or whatever it is that you're going to be doing. The Queen of Wands, this is talking about bringing in a lot of passion, a lot of happiness, getting in touch with some of that feminine instinct, but the more wilder feminine instinct, you know, because there's kind of like 2 different kinds of feminine energies. When I think about the intuitive woman, I think about the wild woman. And then I also think about the very serene, calm, like woman of the moon and water, you know, and then the wild woman would be like woman of the sun and fire, you know, that kind of thing. So I do want to kind of explain what I mean by that, you know. And so we've got that going on. And again, this could represent a person. It could just be that there's a woman that's very impassioned, very happy, that's going to lift you up this week. You know, you should be feeling pretty good, is what I'm saying. This could represent yourself and your partner, or vice versa, you know, depending. And for those of you who are in same-sex relationships, you know, again, there's the masculine principle and the feminine principle. One of you guys are going to be a little bit more one than the other. And even in opposite gender relationships, you can have that flipped, okay? Because I've played the more masculine person in a relationship, believe it or not, before. So, you know, it could be that too. But it's just, you know, remember, romance is out, okay? You're going to be feeling connecting to people, okay? There's one that's kind of like a little bit of a, just as a warning, just as an alert, there is going to be somebody who you feel very connected with, okay? Like a spiritual connection, you know, that's going to be kind of cunning this week, okay? So I was talking about how this feels like it's more about like witty stuff, joking around, maybe being physically active. You know, the fox represents that kind of stuff as well. Maybe not so much the physically active, but the joking around and the witticism and the being clever and that kind of thing. You might even feel a little intimidated by somebody in your life who feels that you feel might be kind of clever, and maybe you might not know whether or not this person's manipulating you. That kind of thing. I think the thing to look at the most, though, is that we're looking at the cross first, okay? And then the fox. So while the fox does define the cross, we're also, it modifies the cross. We are talking about a more spiritual connection than we're talking about, that we're talking about a manipulative connection. Because if it was this way, it would be a lot different. It would be like, oh, there's somebody that's like really manipulative, maybe, or that you might have a false connection with or something. But it's the opposite. It could just be that one of your friends is just in a very clever mood. It could be that. But it's just be aware of that dynamic. So the new beginnings, I really feel like this is going to be more towards the end of the week. So if you're watching, like, no matter what day you're watching, it's going to be maybe 5 days from now, okay? We're talking about new beginnings. Everything in life is constantly vibrating and moving and therefore continuously changing and evolving. Be aware that a new beginning is on the horizon. Have courage and faith, because right now life is trying to nudge you forward and move you in a new direction. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because we've got this, like, when we talk about romance, okay, obviously love comes to mind first, but romance can also be just being in love with life, right? And we've got that. We've got the energy of being playful and active in our bodies. We've got the relatedness. We've got the spirituality, and we've even got the kind of the more intellectual energy here with the friend, maybe the partner. It's like I feel like all of this is just talking about enjoying all of the different variety of things that life can offer you this week. Okay, and also just know there's something new coming. I mean, this is not just a guidance card. It's a predictive card. Something new is coming for you, and I think that it has to do with the heart. Okay, it's going to be something on the heart level. Okay, alrighty, guys. Okay, those of you who picked the white butterfly, pile number 5. This is your card. We've got the sun, we have the child, and it's being modified by the mountain. We've got the moon, the high priestess, and the Hierophant. Okay, 3 major arcana cards. That is a big deal. And considering that we have the sun, as well as the moon, the high priestess, and the Hierophant, that's pretty hardcore. And then we have caregiver. Okay, so this is the instructional card. Just want to explain why I picked the cards that I did. This is supposed to be the general energy, okay, of the week. This is the details, and this is, supposed to give us some more information there. Okay, so guys, one thing that I'm seeing a lot of, and so I think that it's important to be aware of it, is that I'm seeing a lot of male-female relationships in this reading. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, even though we're not doing a love reading, I feel like that you're going to be focusing on an opposite gender relationship. And for those of you who are in same-sex relationships, just understand the masculine and feminine principle is alive in every relationship, okay? There's going to be a more masculine energy and a more feminine energy. So we've got the sun and the moon. The sun has always been associated more with masculine energy, where the moon is more feminine energy. But we're talking about astral bodies. We're talking about really large things that move us, and things that we base our lives around, okay? So the sun energy is letting us know that we are going to get a lot of information this week, because the sun sheds light onto things, okay? It brings things to light. So the moon is letting us know that some of the intuitions that we've been having, and the high priestess, some of the intuition that we have right now about things, some of the things that we're holding back, because the moon can also be about holding back, especially emotions, they're going to start being exposed. And for those of you who pick this, I feel like this isn't just for the viewer, but it's also for people in your life, okay? Their emotions, some of their intuitions are going to be exposed, okay? They're going to be mostly instructional, though, okay? I feel like the high priestess and the Hierophant are kind of like counterparts, and just because I don't want to spread any misinformation, generally it's the magician, the high priestess that are counterparts, okay? I do want to mention that, but they're both, we've got basically the Hierophant represents a priest, and the high priestess is obviously a priestess. They're both kind of religious figures. They don't always have to be, but we're talking about, with the Hierophant, we're talking about instructional things. We're talking about wisdom rather than knowledge. And we're also talking about learning about rules in the social world, okay? And with the high priestess, we're talking about more of the subtle instructional processes that we have when we're in touch with our feminine energy, when we're in touch with that intuition. Okay, so we're looking at both applying the intuition as well as the very physical, tangential, sensory. Okay, so we've got in fact, it's a really great way of doing it, and those of you who are familiar with Jung or typology might recognize these words. With the high priestess, we're talking about the feeling aspect and the intuition aspect, and with the Hierophant, we're talking about the thinking aspect and the sensory aspect of human existence and what we experience. And this is about blending all four of those together to have a very rich, full experience. And I feel like for those of you who feel like, well, I'm really one-sided, like I'm really, really in my feminine energy, so how am I supposed to get in touch with this masculine energy? I feel like that's going to be somebody else is going to come in. Or if you're a very masculine energy person, the feminine energy is going to be coming in, all right? To help you. But the reason I take this crystal, you can feel it, you can describe it, you can say, oh, it's got a point here and it's got sides here, but then I can feel it in my hand. I can feel like the energy of the crystal and all of that. That's, so the reason why I brought that out is so that I could demonstrate that. We're talking about both. There's the thing in front of us, and then there's its essence. Okay. There's going to be, if you want to try to start something new, absolutely go for it. That's fine. Just know that there's going to be some obstacles to that. Okay. For some of you guys, this is just a very flat out use protection so you won't have children. It could just be something as simple as that. And I mean, it popped to mind first when I turned over those cards. So please don't think that I'm just trying to fit it in. It's intuitively that's what I felt as well, is that the mountain talks about blockages, and the child, we're talking about blocking children, so for those of you who aren't ready to have children, make sure you're using protection. In general, though, for most of you guys, this is going to be more about you're going to run into some blocks to starting something new, at least this week. So if you feel particularly inspired and all of that, just make sure that you're kind of holding on to that information, write it down, find a way to get that out of your system so that you have a material on it, so that when it is the right time, when those blocks fall away, as they always do, you will be ready for that. So the instruction is caregiver, okay? So I feel like whichever role you play, whether you're a more masculine energy person or a more feminine energy person, your role is to give care to the other one, okay? So if I'm a really feminine energy woman, I need to give more care to the masculine side of things, okay? Or the men in my life, okay? So, caregiver, I'm going to go ahead and read this. We are with you, and Spirit has its own way of recognizing the care and love you provide to others, especially at the end of their lives, just as you received care and love at the start of your life. Caregivers often focus all their attention on their loved ones and often neglect their own concerns and well-being in the process. So yeah, make sure that you're focusing on yourself too. I don't see anything here that shows that anything's out of balance, though, because obviously we've got the sun, the moon, we've got the high priestess, the Hierophant. It feels very balanced. So I don't feel like that's going to be a big deal for you. Something that it did mention that I wasn't thinking of, but now that I see it, talking about end of life things, we're talking about ending a cycle here. When we start looking at duality, like male and female, when we start looking at things that seem to be opposing or tension, opposites or duals, we're talking about getting to a point where we can hold both in our mind and be okay with it, So even though this card says end of life, I feel like this might be an end of a cycle for you guys, as far as like you're about to get to the next level. And it's really interesting because this might be just the energy going around right now, because I had a previous reading that, from this batch that was kind of similar. And I also had a previous reading from this batch that wasn't similar at all, but it also had 3 major arcana cards. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, this looks positive, okay? Unless you want to start something new this week, it looks very positive, okay? Alrighty, guys. Okay, those of you who picked the blue butterfly pile number 6, here is your reading. We've got patience. Okay, so the general energy this week is going to be about patience. We have the Rider, and we have the Bouquet. We have the Devil, the Tower, and the Queen of Pentacles. That is very interesting. These tend to be very negative cards. But let's see, find your center. Okay, so that makes sense. So patience. I'm not the most patient person, so seriously, it's almost like I don't really know what to tell you other than sometimes there's a time where we have to understand that life has to catch up with our own goals, or with what we expect, in order for us to feel that fulfillment. And we've got the Devil and the Tower and the Queen of Pentacles here. And it's really interesting because usually when I get these cards, I feel a very strong, intuitive feeling of like, ooh, something negative is going to happen, or ooh, somebody's going to be tempted, or these kind of negative feelings. But I feel it's more about questioning yourself and going through some like internal changes. So I do feel like this week is going to really be about looking at yourself on the inside, okay? So with the Devil energy, what we have is changing your mind about what is the right way of being. For example, if you have lived your life with this idea that it's absolutely wrong to do X or Y or Z, it doesn't matter what it is, but the Devil comes around to kind of tempt us, or this energy comes around to kind of tempt us, and it's like, so this could come up, for example, if somebody might have an eating disorder, and this is saying, oh, well, you can have like much more cake than you really should, or whatever. This is all about moderation, making sure that you're doing things in moderation, you're not giving in to excess. But it's also showing you that you're not necessarily chained by your body. I understand that these two people are chained together, but what is interesting about the picture, and you'll see this in just about every Devil card, not all of them, but especially in the traditional ones, the chains, they're not actually binding. They can take them off at any time. They're not. There's no lock that prevents them from just taking it off. This is slack enough that they could just take the chain off their head and just move on. So it is about an illusion that we are bound by maybe our bodies, or we're bound by our maybe shadow self or our negative nature. We don't have to, this doesn't have to be a part of us, or it can be a part of us, but it doesn't have to necessarily be a burden for us, right? The Tower energy is all about something that just disrupts everything and turns us upside down. Now, I'm sure anybody who's seen a really, engrossing film, for example, that changes the way that they look at life, has experienced this, a tower moment that's inside of themselves, where it's not really that their outside has been like all messed up and everything. It's really that their inside, somebody reached into their insides and kind of shook it around. And it's like, wow, okay, I'm looking at the world in a different way. I really feel like that's what this is this week for you guys, because I'm not feeling this sinking feeling that I get when there's like something negative's happening. Keep that in mind. Of course, the traditional meaning is that there could be a catastrophe or a crisis this week. I'm not getting that that's what it is, because then we've got the Queen of Pentacles, and she is like, she's got her stuff. She's grounded in the material world. She's the master of her material world. There's not anything going on around her that she feels out of control with, So that's another reason why I'm saying that. And then we don't have any indication of a turmoil here with the Rider and the Bouquet. One thing about the Rider is that it can, in a woman's life, represent the other man, okay? So, if you're a man and you're wondering about your partner, be very aware that there could be somebody else that's maybe trying to get her attention. This doesn't mean that they're cheating or anything like that. It just means that there could be another energy there that's trying to get her attention, and the devil might be referring to that temptation maybe, or the redirecting of that person's energy towards that. If it's you, it could be you wanting to direct your energy towards that. In fact, one story that I could say is that the devil is saying, maybe you shouldn't be with this other person, maybe you should be with the other person, and that's going to be a shift inside of you, like, whoa, that's something I didn't expect, but the writer doesn't always have to represent that. Obviously, not everybody is in a situation like that. In fact, most of us aren't. The writer can also mean just something coming swiftly for you, and this could be a message, it could be a visit, it could be findings, it could be somebody that wants to communicate something with you. This tends to be more personal communication. I don't know if you can see. I want to hold it up. You see how they've got that messenger bag and the letter with them. It tends to be about messages, okay? But it tends to be in person, and more like, or maybe a phone call, or maybe a video chat rather than text messaging and emails, okay? It tends to be a little bit more personal. And then we've got the bouquet, okay? The bouquet can represent gifts, so this could just show somebody's going to deliver a gift to you, right? But the bouquet also talks about beauty, so you could be receiving some kind of beautiful message this week as well. So find your center. Obviously, when, things are kind of getting disrupted for us, we've got to kind of find that balance within ourselves. This is all about, as you're challenging your beliefs, as you're kind of rethinking and recalibrating maybe, where you are in your inner world, because this really does feel like the inner world. Understand that you also have to regain that balance, okay? So that's what finding your center is. Patience is just, I really think, especially when we're looking at this, patience has to do with just being patient with ourselves as we have to go through this lesson that we're learning, okay? And this is going to sound crazy, but this does not look like a bad week. It actually looks like a very productive, positive week, as long as any kind of changes that we're looking at are looked at as something that's evolving us, okay? Because that's what this is showing me. This isn't the big external catastrophe that we find ourselves, like, it's not happening to us, it's happening through us. That's what this is. We're talking about the internal world, okay? So be prepared for, like, maybe a change of understanding, or a shifting of understanding this week, okay? Alrighty, guys. Right, thank you guys so much for watching until the end. I've decided to go ahead and put up this part of my readings as the end message and the timestamps, so you guys always have this. Basically, what's been going on with me is that my equipment isn't working very well, and so I have to replace my computer because I need a quicker processor, because I can't process the videos quick enough to put them on my channel, and it's really, really frustrating to me. But the good thing is that I've got a lot of content. I just, need to put it on the internet so you guys can access it. So basically what I'm doing is that I'm raising money, and we're getting money from the business account and everything, and we're gonna purchase a new computer because we have to have the computer be better than the one we have right now. It is going to cost about $800. Like I said before, we're about halfway to that goal. If you do want to donate, that's great. But I mean, please, I do not feel pressured. I do not want to pressure anybody. The reason I mentioned the Amazon wish list is that you can purchase gift cards there, and the computer we are going to purchase from Amazon. So that's why I have that. Okay. That's over. We don't have to worry about that or talk about that. I do want to say thank you guys so much for sticking with me, for watching my videos, for participating, and all of that great stuff. I love this channel. I love how it's growing, and I absolutely love doing this for you guys, and I look forward to doing it more and more in the future, and putting out content that's a lot more consistent and daily. Okay, guys? So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all the participation, for liking and subscribing and commenting and all that great stuff. I really appreciate it. I feel really honored for you guys, to be interested enough in what I have to say to follow me and all of that. So thank you. And I will see you in our next reading.